Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Teen Take and Make kit from Manlius Library. In your kit, you will have received materials for two projects. We're going to do a painting of the Northern Lights with some tree silhouettes. For that, you will have a canvas, a brush, and some paints. There's blue, turquoise, pink, black, and purple. And also a paper plate for mixing or blending if you want to. You'll also need a cup of water and a damp cloth or some paper towels for that project. The second project we're going to do today is making a DIY magic wand. And for that, you will have in your kit a small pack of clay wrapped in plastic. Leave that wrapped up until we're ready to use it. Chopsticks, a knife, a plastic knife, some sandwich picks and or toothpicks, sandwich picks, and then the magical ingredient. You also have a phoenix feather, a dragon heartstring, and a piece of unicorn's tail. We're going to set the wand craft stuff aside for now and work on our painting first. So we've got our canvas. I'm going to work with mine this way, horizontal way, and we're gonna and you also have some brown paint, and that's for the wand craft. So I'm gonna start with blue, and if you have other brushes that you'd like to use for this, you're welcome to do so. I have a few others I may add into the mix while I'm working, but we're gonna start with this brush and the blue, and we're just going to pretty much cover the canvas. Doesn't have to be exact, and yours is not going to look like mine, and it shouldn't. This is an open-ended painting craft, and you should use your imagination and make yours look however you'd like. I'm imagining, I'm going to sit this way. I'm imagining there's kind of a horizon line about here. Okay, above this line is, or below that line is really going to be the trees. So we're just using the blue. Your colors might look a little different than mine do. I'm using some older paints left over from past kits, just to use those up. And you'll notice I'm just doing back and forth. This is the sky, the night sky. So it doesn't have to be completely full. But I like to get around the edges here, so that that bright white edge doesn't distract the eye from the picture that we're making. Okay, so there we have our night sky. It's streaky, but that's all right. There's our night sky. I like to get the edges. If you have a small easel, you could use your easel. I like to work flat. Great. So there's our night sky. We'll rinse off the brush. Get the blue off. If you have other colors you'd like to use, you're welcome to do so. I'm going to cap this blue back up. Okay. Okay, so now it's time to add our colors. And for that we have pink and turquoise and purple. we're going to take our brush, and we went back and forth with the blue sky. We're going to actually go up and down and just kind of streak it right on to the wet paint. Okay. You do want to be careful not to mix your colors in your pots, because then you've changed the color. So you want to rinse your brush in between, or if you want to, you could use your paper plate, and pour some of the paint out onto your plate, whether it's paper or plastic. I think some people got a plastic plate. Pour some of that out there. That way you don't have to worry about mixing your paint. You can see mine are a little thicker. Oh well, let's see. This one goes on here. This one, goes here. Okay, so it's okay if you mix your paint in your brush, you just don't want to mix it in the little pots. So we've got some of that. We're going to add some pink to it. This is where you really just use your imagination. Throw in some purple. If you have green, green is great for this as well. I'm going to actually put a little bit of blue. I don't want to lose the whole look that it's the night sky. So you can always add more blue back in. Make it pretty vivid down here. Like that. Cross your colors over and just streak them. A little bit of a wet brush never hurt for doing this. Okay. You can always let it dry and go back over and add more colors in. I do like to have a bit of a bright, a little bit more bright down towards the tree line. Okay, so that's the night sky. You can also, if you want to, with a little bit of a wet brush, just kind of drag across a little bit and then streak it back up and down again. That'll help blend your colors. Okay, so there's our night sky with the northern lights. Awfully pretty. Okay, we'll let that dry for just a couple of minutes. Doesn't need to be perfectly dry because we're not actually going to be working up here so much as down here, but you do want to let it dry a little bit so that you're not dragging your trees into the northern lights. So I'm gonna let that dry for a minute. I'll be right back and I'll show you the next step, which is adding trees. My painting is fairly dry. If you want to speed up that process, you can always use a hairdryer. So now we're gonna open the black and make sure our brush is nice and clean. Okay, so our first step for this is just the ground. So we're going to do just like we did for the sky. We're going to do the ground. Now you don't want it to be just a perfectly straight line across. We're going to start by filling this in, but then we're going to actually do this across the top. Because the idea that we're going for is trees and bushes and other shrubbery in the foreground of this picture. So, and like we did for the night sky, kind of want to get those edges. Notice I've covered my workspace completely. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, but it's pretty noticeable. I've discovered this is a really good way to use up all those paper bags that I've gotten over the past year. So, and then we're just going to rough up that edge a little bit. Okay. So it's not just a perfectly straight line. Now, you want your brush to be fairly flat. And we're going to take for the trees, and we're going to put not too much paint on our brush, and we're going to just do a line. So there's a tree. Now, if you have a smaller brush and you want to do this with a smaller brush, you're welcome to. And there's a tree. I appear to have a hair in my paint. And maybe super tall tree here. And then maybe some littler trees. Another tall one here. You just kind of want the idea of where the trees are going to be. And that one, and then super tall. So that's kind of our outline for our trees. Then we're going to fill them in, and we're going to do that keeping your brush nice and flat. We're going to start at the bottom, and we're just going to do boughs. And you want them to get narrower as you go up to the top. Okay? And just do that across each one. And it's okay if they overlap because you're going to have a forest here. Okay? And I'm just kind of pressing down and going side to side. And you could do some brush strokes as well. You don't have to pat the whole thing. Oop, I do have a hair on there. There it is. So let's take that off. The dangers of painting with long hair not tied back. Okay, so continuing on. You're just kind of making them tree shaped. Nothing specific. Just generally tree shaped. And here we'll do some back and forth. Maybe this is a denser part of the forest. But you just want to start wider at the bottom of the tree and narrower at the top. Like images that you see of pine trees. Although these aren't pine trees, these are trees that have dropped their leaves. That's what this is down here. Now, once you've drawn in your trees, you can see at the bottom where the trunks go into the black. So if you want to take your brush and just kind of pat on some extra paint, It also gives it a nice textured look, and I really like a nice textured look in, especially in nature paintings. Okay. And then just kind of look at it and see where you might want to add something. Maybe this tree needs to be a little taller, so we'll bring that up. Just kind of shape them out the way you want them. Right? And there you have trees in the Northern Lights, and you can spend as much time or as little time as you want adding details to this. Once it's all dry, if you decide you want to add more to the Northern Light colors, maybe you want to make them brighter, or you've blended them too much and you want to give a little bit more separation to them, you can do that. But there we go, a Northern Lights picture. All right, I'm going to clean up the paints and I'll be back to show you how we make a magic wand. Okay, I cleaned up my paint and I'm back with my materials for the wand craft. We've got our chopstick. We only need one of those. A knife. This is to cut little pieces off the clay or even to make designs in the clay once you've got it all on there. You've also got your clay and then your 3 magical centers for your wand if you would like to go with the magical center route. You can choose any of them or you could choose all of them. My recommendation is to take a small piece of one. I'm going to use the unicorn tail. I'm going to set those aside. And if you're using the unicorn tail, the best way to get it to wrap around, to put the clay around it, is to curl very carefully. Open your scissors, do this, and put your thumb against it and just pull, and it will curl the ribbon. And then you can do it on the other side too to curl that very last end. Just hold it, put your scissors there, put your thumb there, and very careful. Don't use good sewing shears, they'd be too sharp. And just do that. And then you've got your unicorn tail curled. So if you're going to use the feather to put on the inside, I would cut just a small piece of it off. And the same with the dragon heartstring. So we're going to open up our clay. This is a craft that takes place in 2 parts, and there's a good 24-48 hours in between those 2 parts. You really are going to need to let your clay dry before you can move on to the painting of it. So hang on to the plastic wrap because you're going to want to wrap your clay back up once you're done. Okay, so I'm going to actually just leave my clay there. Set the paint aside. You also are going to want a damp cloth for this. This clay can be messy and it does stain, so be careful. So we've got our wand base. We've got our magical center, whichever you've chosen. And we've got our clay. So the first thing is to cut off a little piece of clay. Expect to get messy during this one. And just kind of smoosh it around, soften it up a little bit. You can see already. Okay, and we're going to start with a handle. I think for the easiest way to get your magical center inside is to just wrap it around like that. Okay, and then while holding it, put the clay over it and just kind of wrap it around. Alternatively, if you were using, especially if you were using a piece of feather or the dragon heartstring, you could make the flat piece of clay and put that on the clay and then put the wand in it. So you want your clay really wrapped around and attached to that. So really work it well. We're gonna make the top a little flat. You can always add more clay. This is another one of those crafts that is really all up to your imagination. So if we just kind of use your thumb. And remember, this is your wand, so you could even do this and put your own fingerprints in it. Okay. And you can smooth it out. If you have a cup of water handy, you can use some water to smooth that out. Not a lot, just a little bit on your fingertip. Okay. But we want our wand to look natural. We don't want it to look like it came off an assembly line. So it's okay if it has small imperfections or creases. You just kind of want to make sure it's not gonna, the clay's not gonna fall off. So there's the top. We've got the top. So I'm going to take a little more clay and we can roll it. A little bit of water on my hands. This is air dry clay. You do not need to bake it. That's why the wait time in between the creating of the wand and the painting of the wand is so long. You air dry this clay. This clay does not get baked in the oven or kilned. You don't need to put it in a kiln. So I'm just going to make this snake piece that kind of maybe looks like a vine. And then putting a little bit of water on there and a little bit of water there. We're going to attach it. We're going to wrap it. Water makes the clay a little stickier. It's all experimentation. Using your imagination. Okay, so we've got maybe a clay center there. You're working very carefully because as you can see, it's fragile until it's dry. And I think I'm going to take just a little bit more. Clay is great to use for this craft because it holds the magical properties right in next to the wand. Or so Mr. Ollivander told me. Okay, so working very carefully. Squishing that yarn or squishing that clay right up. You don't want a big air gap in between. You want to really work that clay up. Okay. Working right to the end. The warmth and moisture of your hands will help keep the clay pliable. Now, if you wanted to do it and just maybe create the handle and part way up with the clay and leave the rest bare wood, you're welcome to do that. As I said before, this is a craft that is entirely dependent upon your imagination. And you can feel as you're working that it's already starting to dry. Okay. And there we have a magic wand, a very fragile at this moment magic wand. So, looking it over, got to make sure there's nothing that needs fixing. At this time, if you wanted to maybe draw or poke a design into your wand carefully, you could use the sandwich picks to do so. Okay. Just be careful not to poke them too far. Maybe do a rune or a design or whatever you want to do. Now, we are going to take this and we are going to set it aside on a piece of paper and let it dry for 24 to 48 hours. Okay? Longer is better for this. And what you want to do, here first we're going to wrap this clay back up. If you wrap your clay up tight, as you can see, I covered my whole wand with it and I still have that much left. So hang on to that. You can use it for another craft. You could make another wand with it. There's certainly enough clay for that. So we're going to wrap that back up. Okay, my piece of tape right here. Tape that closed and set that aside for another day. We are also going to set aside our wand and let that dry. I happen to have a piece of paper right here for that. We're going to set that right over here and let that dry. And wipe off my hands. You can see this clay is very messy. It does stain, so be careful with your clothing. Okay, now, by the magic of television, not really, I have a wand that I did last week and I let it dry. And so you can see the difference. Let's grab that. You can see the difference. It gets, oh, there's a piece of, you want to be careful not to get them wet. You can see the difference in color. As it dries, it gets lighter. And it also is lighter weight because the water is evaporating out and that's what makes the clay dry. You can see this one is already starting up here. Places where I first started is already getting lighter. It's also, you can hear the difference. Okay? So we're going to put that back over there to dry. So we've got this wand now, but now it just looks like a clay wand. This is where your paint comes in. And you can use the brown paint that I put in your kit. And if you wanted to, you could even use some of the black to paint your wand. So we're going to open that up. Open that up. And again, you've got your cup of water and you've got your cloth. And we're just going to paint because we want to make this look like actual wood. Okay. Now, if you like the look of the clay and you just want to leave it that way, you absolutely can do that. If you want to just paint part of it, you can absolutely do that. So we just paint it. Getting the paint in all the little grooves. I think I'm going to pour a little bit of black out there and mix some black and brown together to get a different kind of color. Okay, and we'll pour a little bit of brown out too. You can use a paper plate for that, or you could just use the table covering. As long as you're going to just toss it, might as well use it. This is one of those fabulous crafts that everybody does the same and nobody's looks the same. And I think that with things like magic wands and night sky paintings, that is how it should be. You can see as it dries, the clay kind of contracts in a little bit. That's why you can kind of see the bare wood through on this one. Which is fine. We can just get some paint in there and just what makes it unique. I'm nearing the end of where I can hold my magic wand. Now, if you wanted to make your wand super fancy, you could add a gem or a colored stone to the top. Once this is all done, you could glue that right on there once it's dry. Or you could use some of the other paints from this week's project and add some color to your wand. I really like the natural look for magic wands, but I know a lot of people also love the bright colors. So you could maybe paint your designs that you made with the toothpicks. You could add some color to those. Or you could just, there are some absolutely beautiful woods found in nature that are red and purple and green. Okay. There's no way to do this without getting paint on your hands unless you do it in stages. And that's okay. Alrighty. Now, this is air dry clay and acrylic paint. It is not waterproof. You do not want to leave this in the rain. You do not want to cast your magical spells with wet hands because the paint will come off and the clay will disintegrate. If when you're all done, you really want to protect it, you could use a couple coats of clear coat to protect it if you wanted to make it a little stronger. But remember that clay is fairly fragile. All right, and there we have our magic wand. So just kind of take a look at it. You're going to want to let it dry and maybe go back over it. Oh, I kind of like that. All right, so there we have our magic wand. I'm going to get cleaned up. I'll be back for a few final thoughts. Well, thanks for joining me today. I hope you had fun making a Northern Lights painting and also a magic wand. Now, as you're letting your raw clay, your fresh clay magic wand dry, you want to turn it. You'll notice that the side that's up is going to dry a lot faster than what's down. So every once in a while, every few hours, just give it a turn so that the more wet clay is up, and that will help it dry both evenly and more quickly. And the same with the painted one. You'll see, I mean, some of it is going to come off on wherever it's laying to dry, but it's drying pretty fairly evenly. I have a spot there I need to get. So, thanks for joining me. I hope you had fun today. My name is Lori. I'm the teen librarian at Manlius Library, and you can find me here every other Thursday at 3 o'clock on our YouTube channel for a craft and an art project. Next week's kit has opened for registration, and we'll be making coasters that look like little palettes. They're absolutely adorable. And we'll also be doing a neat textured tissue paper painting technique that's kind of cool and really pretty. So go ahead and sign up. If you're in the Central New York area, go ahead and sign up for that and arrange for pickup of your kit. And I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week and happy crafting.